Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Zack, and this is episode 588 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today, I talk with Jordan Couch about tips for new and experienced law firm owners on how to run how to practice law. And they're very practical tips. He's got 411 tips on how to practice law, and he's got a new book out.
Nice. That's a lot of tips.
It is a lot of tips. I think he was going for 501. Yeah, and he got to 411 and was like, you know what?
That's good.
This is the number for information. So let's stay.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So honestly, when you read the book, Jordan has a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that type of stuff in the book that we get into in the interview. But
nice. By the way, I love Jordan. He was a member of our lab community.
he practices law up in Washington State.
Yeah.
So yeah. But Stephanie, why are we? Oh, yeah.
Fireside.
Yeah. What are we doing here? Where are we?
Well, we're at the Ohioan. We're in Ohio, which is unusual for both of us.
Yes.
But yes, we're here because we are practicing what we teach our labsters, which is sometimes it's important to get your team together, to get away from the day-to-day and to focus on what's next. So we've actually, because we're a fully remote team, everyone works from home.
Yeah.
And so we brought everybody, all 90-something of us, at the same place, at the same time, breathing the same air, looking at how tall everybody is. You know, it's been lots of surprises. People are like, "You're so tall."
Yeah. Well, not to us.
No,
yes.
Not to us, but other people are tall. And so it's given us a chance to get the team together. We're going to be rolling out our new vivid vision for what we want to accomplish as a company in the next 3 years. So we've previewed that. We did a lot of work. We've done dig into our business.
Yeah, we broke into teams that we have in the company, and everybody kind of really got to sit down and do some real deep thinking and deep work, and then some practical work as well. So, but I want to point out though that we do have some people that are here hybrid. We were able to get some people here via Zoom that weren't able to show up, and so kind of no excuses. For not being able to do this, and you can put everybody in one place. And so some things come up.
Yeah, some things came up for some folks, health issues. So we adjusted, we made it happen. The other thing that should go without saying, but it's so important, is we have just had so much fun as a team. You forget, last night we did some karaoke that was super fun. The night before that, we went to Topgolf. Tonight, I think we have some trivia. But it's, you forget the importance of having a meal with somebody, connecting with a team member that you never see on a regular basis, and finding out how they're doing or what they do for their job. Like sometimes we just forget that we all have a lot going on. And so it's important to create the space, to plan for it, to make the budget for it. We had a very thoughtful process where we brought in, where we thought about what we wanted to accomplish each day. And also, cool tip, we hired a couple of interns. We hired a couple of people that we knew, because we wanted our whole team to be present and to be able to work. So we hired a couple of interns to come and help us sort of run the back end logistics of it. And they've been great. They've been the ones, passing out the cards and getting all the things, making all the, if you need a marker or whatever it is, they're the running around doing all the things so that our team could all really be present and focused on their work.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, you don't necessarily have to hire interns. If you're a small firm or attorney, that's something that we do. We facilitate retreats.
Yeah, but different. These people were more like logistics people for us. Well, when I go into a firm, of course, I'll go run in and get your marker. Yeah. But that's probably not the highest and best use of sorry to say this, but no, can I say that? That's not my highest and best use.
So it is
more the
thing.
We're helping plan the agenda and helping facilitate. The point is, you don't have to do this alone. So whatever level of help you need, and planning the agenda could be the hardest part. To me, that's my favorite part. We really dig in. What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And then how do we build an agenda that gets you there?
Right. I love it. It's a fun thing to do. It's not. It's something you have to be deliberate about. And each time we've done it, it's been extremely valuable.
It's budgeting time for most firms. I mean, it should be. You should be working on your budget. If not, make sure, by the way, you're on our Wednesday newsletter, because every week this month on our Wednesday newsletter, I'm giving you step-by-step instructions on your budgeting, because it's money month around here, because we got to be getting ready for 2026. But my point is, put this in your budget for next year. Make the commitment that you're going to get your team together. Our leadership team gets together in person quarterly. We bring the whole company together at least annually. So make the plan now. Now's the time to plan for 2026. Make this a priority, as it should be. And then let's get intentional and make it happen for you.
Yeah. Well, we'll drop the link to get onto Stephanie's Wednesday email list in the show notes. But you can always go to Lawyerist.com/subscribe. And you can find it there. But now, here's my interview with Jordan Kalish.
Hi, I'm Jordan Couch. I'm a partner at Palace Law in Tacoma, Washington. I also formerly was the chair of the Washington State Bar Association's solo and small practice section. And then I moved on from that, and I'm now in my second term on the board of governors for the Washington State Bar Association, doing a lot of work there. Recently, though, I decided I wasn't busy enough, so I wrote a book of 411 tips for solo and small firm lawyers. This is the proof copy that has the nice typos in it for you still.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. That'll be a collector's item someday.
Exactly.
I have a few Tony Hillerman books that are like that. I have no idea where I got them, but anyway, I digress. Jordan, thanks for being with me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. A lot of times I see you all over LinkedIn, all over Instagram. We've been connected for a while, but a lot of times I see you actually in your second thing, the Board of Governors, talking about some of the future of law stuff. So we'll get into a little bit of the future of law later on in the podcast. But yeah, you wrote the 411 tips on practicing law. Talk to me about this book. Where'd this come from? And I guess first, what is it? What's the idea here?
Yeah, so the basic idea is to be an introductory guide to help lawyers kind of across the spectrum, but who are in solo and small firms specifically, do better in practice and have an easier time in practice, and not have to learn over a decade, the things that I learned over the last decade. And, I had the mentors. And so for those who don't, I just wanted to create something easily accessible to a lot of people to cover a lot of basics and a little bit of the fun, exciting stuff as well.
Yeah. In reading this, I'm a second generation attorney. And so I got to practice with my dad for, I think, 7 years. And reading this, I read a lot of it in my father's voice. And, there's a lot of stuff I think I said to you before we started recording that, it's not elementary stuff here, but it's fundamental. It's things that I literally remember my father saying to me. So it is very instructive, but like, I don't know, you don't necessarily know these things coming right out of law school. These aren't things that are just like taught to you, because we don't know how to we don't know how to run a law office. You don't know how to do strategy against opposing counsel a lot of times,
Yeah, that's something that's always difficult. And I think also drilling fundamentals is so important. I am a trial attorney, and I have a book of trial basics that before a big jury trial, I will reread, because even if I know all of these things, drilling basics is so important. And so if you're starting out, you might not know a lot of these things. If you've been practicing for a little while, it always helps to remind yourself to just drill those basics.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's kind of jump into here. We've got 411 of these to get through, so we're going to have to talk very, very quickly. No, but we'll touch on a couple of them here and kind of talk about some of your favorites and dive in a little bit. But we start with, we go from starting your own practice to customer service, financial management. We lead into innovation and becoming sustainable. That was one chapter that I thought was very, very interesting. But going all the way into tips if you're a new lawyer, tips if you've been practicing for 20 years. So I think this really runs the gamut of subjects as it goes to like tips to attorneys. It's not just for new attorneys. It's for seasoned attorneys. It's for attorneys practicing a lot. But let's start at the beginning. Let's start at kind of, I guess, chapter 1, technically, starting your own practice.
Yeah.
Grab me a tip in there.
I have to start at the beginning, right? Tip number 2, which really starts the book, is just pick your lane. And this is something, when I was first starting out and I didn't have a job and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I thought, okay, well, I can start practicing law on my own. And the question is, well, what will I do? Okay, well, I could figure out how to do personal injury. I could figure out how to do criminal law. I could do family law if I needed to. Really, and the list of what you can do gets so long.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of my friends go through this as well, who have come out of practice, out of law school after me and tried to start their own practice. They know they can do everything. They're desperate for anything. And so they start doing everything. And what I've learned is that is a huge mistake. If you practice every type of law at all levels, you do nothing. And you don't give anyone a reason to hire you. So tip number 1, if you're starting a practice, if you're going out there, pick your lane. Decide what you're going to do. Be as specific as possible, right? If it's personal injury, okay, is there an area of personal injury where you think you can be the expert in your state, in your community? If you are going to be kind of a generalist, okay, what's the community you're serving? A great attorney I know is something of a generalist, but she really focuses on the LGBTQ plus community in her neighborhood. That's who she's trying to serve. So there are all these models, but really picking your lane is the starting point because that's so important.
But that scares the shit out of me, Jordan. I remember you start your practice and you think, I'll take anything. I'll take anything that comes in. So how did you, I guess, kind of get the gumption to pick your lane, to niche down, I guess, as some people say?
A little bit of luck is part of it, frankly.
Yeah.
I, was looking for everything, but I found a contract job with one firm that was doing workers' compensation. And I got in there starting out on an appellate case, right? So it was already kind of high level, high niche. And I just thought, okay, I can do as much contract work for this firm as I can, and started doing a lot of that. And then it so happened that as I'm doing that, I met another attorney who did workers' compensation, who shared a lot of interest with me, Patrick Pallas, and we connected. And he was absolutely not looking to hire, but we connected, and I had this niche I'd built for myself that lined up with his as well. And I didn't have to make the courage of starting my own firm. He'd already done that, but I got to make the courage to say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do workers' compensation in your firm, and that is all I'm going to do. And because I did that, I had the support of some experience, some falling, and the willingness to just commit and say, this is all I'm going to do. But because I did that, within that firm, I rose up to becoming a manager and a partner within 4 years.
That's pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Was Patrick doing workers' compensation at that time? Was Pallas Law doing that? Like, did you kind of niche inside of there? Because I could envision a scenario where you come into a practice and you say, well, I want to expand what this practice that is already niched down is doing,
Yeah. And, there were conversations I've had, but really what I saw was this, I have some workers' compensation experience. This firm is already doing workers' compensation. Sure, expanding, building a book of business sounds good on paper of like, making the firm more money by expanding to new practice areas. But I saw that there was really a better opportunity to just make us the best at what we were doing already and help make us the best, because that's, the opportunity was there available in front of me. And so I was able to just say, rather than trying to add value to this firm by expanding, I can add value by being the best that we have at this.
Okay. And that seems to have worked because you've been practicing there for a significant amount of time now. All right. 410 left to go. All right. But seriously, we're going to kind of bounce through some of these. You've got starting your law practice is chapter 1. And I think it's significant that client services is chapter 2. Talk to me about that. Client services is chapter 2. And that had to be an intentional decision, right?
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of lawyers struggle with, is recognizing that we are a service industry. One advantage I had coming out of law school was that I paid my way through college and most of law school working in restaurants, where it's very obvious you're in a service industry, right?
Yeah.
But you come out,
the end
of
the
lawyers,
night really tells you. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of lawyers say like, no, we are a profession. We're a high-minded, grand profession. And while there's some truth to that, there's also a lot of reality, is your job is to serve people. You are at their whim. And so I wanted to go straight from starting our own practice to recognizing, one of the tips in starting your own practice is be obsessed with quality, because customer service is everything. you need to be delivering on customer service and communicating with people. And in a world where people don't like lawyers, people don't want lawyers, people never want to hire a lawyer, right?
No.
I use the same joke anytime a potential client calls my office, where I get on the phone with them and I hear a little bit of their story and I say, how you doing today, right? And it's never great because they're calling an injury law firm. And so the joke I use every time is, I had a feeling. Rarely does someone call an attorney saying, I'm having the best day of my life, I really need an attorney.
Right. Things are going great. Let's sue somebody.
Yeah. And so one of my favorites out of this book, tip 18, learn to sell respectfully. As a lawyer, you have to be able to sell your services and be willing to sell your services, especially if you're running your own practice. And I've never been a fan of the hard sell. I think in a legal context, it's really distasteful. And so if you have to convince someone to hire you, either they don't need your services or you've done a poor job explaining it. And so learning to sell respectfully was one of my favorite tips in the book.
I do like that one because it still lets you kind of take pride in what you do. And it takes kind of flipping your brain. For me, it takes flipping my brain a little bit to, no, I'm providing a service that somebody needs. This person needs this thing and I'm doing good work. And I can charge for that. That's okay. But we don't have to try to really, like you said, kind of sell my service. My service is my service. I'm doing good work. It should be there.
They've reached out to you. They've called you. They've reached out to you. My dad used to say, selling cars, no one walks onto a car lot if they're not at least open to the idea of buying a car. If someone's calling you, there's something they want from a lawyer. Understand that. Decide if you're willing to offer that to them, and then tell them what you're willing to offer it to them. And if there's a match between price and what they're willing to pay, you've got a sale. You don't have to pressure anyone.
Yeah. So one that I really, and there's a lot of really good ones in this, in the client services one, but one that I really liked that spoke to me that, again, I heard in my father's voice was redirect anger. Talk to me about that one. I like that because it's kind of judo of client services,
Yeah, it's especially when you're dealing with people, with injuries or with, something bad going on in their life, a difficult legal system that's making people upset. You will get a lot of complaints calls as a lawyer. And I think it's really important to always be compassionate to those people, but that doesn't necessarily mean giving in to them. And so what I say is, when I have an angry client, I will often ask them, what specifically would you like me to do for you that I'm not doing? Yeah. And in my experience, sometimes people are just kicking and screaming, but most of the time answers come into two categories. It's either a straightforward request like, hey, I need you to call me more. And I say, okay, I'm going to start scheduling a call with you every week or every 2 weeks until you feel comfortable again. Or sometimes I get an admission that they really aren't mad at me and they just need to vent and I get an apology. But that question is really key because it cuts through whatever noise is going on. I'm upset. This is happening in my life. I lost my truck. I'm getting divorced. There's just so much mess out there. And you can cut through that by just asking that question. What specifically would you like me to do that I'm not doing? Because you're the one they're complaining to. So cut through that. What do they need from you? And if they can't answer that question, then it's not about you. I love this one because,
we as attorneys, a lot of people think they get into being an attorney because they're good at arguing. People get told you should be an attorney when you grow up. You're good at arguing, and so sometimes our knee-jerk reaction, just out of habit, is to push back, to argue on the same playing field that they're on, and this is you don't have to sit there and argue with them over whether or not you called them. In your example, it's okay. I hear you. We'll talk more.
And, one of the examples I've done on that is, if someone is complaining about one of my paralegals and they'll say, hey, they didn't call me. And I'll look through the notes and I'll say, okay, but, I see that they called you and left you a message on this day, sent you an email this day. But what I'm hearing from you is that's not enough. So I'm pushing back.
Yeah.
But not really. I'm validating their feelings. What I'm hearing from you is that's not enough. So then it turns to the question, what would you like to make this work? What do you need for this to be working? And there's a lot of cognitive science behind this that, when you try to argue with someone about their beliefs on something, their opinions on something, they get more entrenched. Even if you are right, they get more entrenched. So don't push back on people, but asking people questions allows them to bring themselves to a different place in the argument. And so you can say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. You're telling me that's not enough. What more do you need from us? That changing of the question puts it on them to solve the problem instead of on you to solve their problem.
I love that one. I really like that one. And I think so that leads into another
piece of advice that you have, which is like, I think you actually have to put two pieces together, which is, be cordial to opposing counsel, but also don't be a pushover. You've got two there that are, you can seek collegiality with opposing counsel and everybody else, but like you don't have to be a pushover to make things right. To have client service or to make sure that everybody is okay.
Yeah, one of the most difficult aspects of being a trial lawyer, and I'm sure this exists in other legal contexts as well, is the balance between, to be a good trial lawyer, I say you have to be deeply afraid of losing. Because if you're not afraid of losing, you're not going to have the drive to do the work it takes to win. But at the same time, in order to be a good trial attorney, you have to be willing and not afraid of losing. And that comes up in these things. It's like you have to be reasonable. You have to make deals at times when you need to make a deal. I've had cases I was planning to take legal issues to the Supreme Court, but then the opposing counsel gives my client an offer, and I really want to say to my client, no, don't take this, even though it's the best possible scenario for you, because I want to push my legal issue.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to be willing to kind of stand up and say, look, I know I'm going to lose, but I'm going to push this argument anyway, and I'm going to make this claim, and I'm going to keep fighting. And that balance comes up in litigation, but it also comes up in dealing with clients, right? One of the things I mentioned in here is don't waive your fees, but I also say give back money where you can. If you can give back money to clients, do that. They need it.
Yeah.
But don't waive your fees, don't discount your fees, don't argue with clients about your fees.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because your product has value. You have to maintain your value. Yeah. I like that. And so that's in the that's always kind of like in the litigation area. One of the ones that I really liked in the litigation chapter, and this is on further down, is the trial is always happening. I think attorneys, if you ask them, they would agree with that, but I don't know that they would necessarily think that initially. When did you kind of come up with this idea, or what pushed you to the concept that the trial is always happening? We're always moving forward on this, I guess.
Yeah, there are a few trial attorneys that I kind of had as mentors, including Patrick, that kind of taught this to me over time. And it starts with the little things, right? Of like when you're in the parking lot, when you enter the courtroom or the courthouse, be aware that you don't know which jurors are going to be yours when you start that day. And so if you cut in front of someone in line, if you are on your phone and taking a call, and even if it's talking to your family and you're making jokes, you could be heard by someone.
Yeah.
The closer you get to the courthouse, the closer you get to your potential jurors. And they're not necessarily going to say, yeah, I saw him in the lobby and he was being an asshole on the phone to someone.
Right.
Or he made some joke that I think was really inappropriate. They're not going to say that in voir dire. They're going to say, no, I've never met this person in my life, because they haven't. They might not even recognize you at the time that you're doing your voir dire. But this goes, further. There are always contexts where a jury might encounter you, right? And they're also, be aware of what the jury might end up hearing, right? If you're doing a deposition, is this transcript going to come in for some reason? But also, if you're on your way to the courthouse and you cut someone off in traffic, they might pull in behind you at the courthouse and be on your jury, right? Who you are in the community is everything. And I think some of the best trial attorneys I've seen are people that are giants in their community as well. They're philanthropists. They're out there doing good work. They're speaking with people. They're offering to help. And I think it's really important to realize that people do have biases and they're going to interact with you. And there's always a chance, especially the smaller the community you have, the more likelihood that juror is going to know you or someone like you. I never go through a jury trial without the juror recognizing someone in the room on there. And sometimes it can be a lot of people. I got called for jury duty recently and I got out of it because I saw the case and I explained to the judge, well, Your Honor, I'm happy to be on jury duty, but this is a workers' compensation case, or this is a personal injury case that happened on a work injury. And one of the attorneys I went to law school with in Indiana, even though we're in Seattle. It's a small world wherever you are. So I think you have to be very aware. Like, it's not just at the courthouse. Everywhere your jurors are in your community.
That's fair. I remember my father, who was public defender for years and years, swears that he lost a case because the jury saw him and the DA eating lunch together. Because they were cordial to each other. They had a job to do. Of course, they were going to argue their cases, but the jury seeing that they were cordial to each other, like, oh, well, it couldn't have been that bad. He swears he lost a case because of that. But you're right, because it's always going on. Yeah. Well, let's move a little bit, and I feel like we're not going to give the book the full treatment here, because you know what? Go read the damn thing. Go get it, read it. We're not going to go through everything, but let's move to writing. I liked writing, and I'll tell you while we're getting there that I have a note on writing that says, read is inherent in all of this. You don't necessarily say it, but inherent in this entire thing is read a lot. And I kind of love that. You're quoting, Kurt Vonnegut in here and talking about, and it's not just read books or read literature or read nonfiction. It's read other attorneys. I really liked that one. You had, I think it's 266, is steal from your favorite writers. And included in there is like other attorneys that you respect. I thought that was very neat.
Absolutely. There are public records on so many cases, and how many people have gone out and watched a trial of an attorney they thought was good to learn, especially as a starting lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what? Their briefs are online. You can go find those and read them. And, one of the early cases I worked on ended up going up to the Supreme Court in the state of Washington. And I had worked on it at the contract firm I was doing, and I lost. And I went to Palace Law, and Patrick said, I have this case for you. And he told me about the case, and he said, it's an interesting one. I think we're going to take it up to the Court of Appeals. And I said, I have good news and bad news. I already have all the briefing written on this. And he says, that's great news. And I said, but I lost. And he goes, well, try again, Jordan. And I was like, okay.
Swing away.
I lost again. Lost the Court of Appeals. Then we brought on an appellate attorney, and he came on, and he was, Phil Burai was very kind. And he said, look, Jordan, I'm going to, change a lot of things, but I want you to know you did a good job as a new attorney in this, but I'm probably going to change some things. And I said, Phil, I've lost this case twice. Change everything.
Do not do it my way.
I read all the briefs that he wrote, and I learned so much from the way he wrote and that style of how you take something from the trial attorney mindset to the appellate attorney mindset. And since then, I've tried to bring those things back. And it is read, there's the famous apocryphal Einstein quote of, if you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be brilliant, read them lots of fairy tales, right? My mom was an English teacher. Reading is, you can see a small portion of the books behind me.
Yes. Yeah.
Steal from your favorite writers, steal from everyone. And it doesn't have to just be legal writing too, is one of the points I wanted to make in this book, is steal from everyone.
Well, so speaking of that, let's take a step back and get a little bit meta on this book. The structure of this book, you actually stole as well, because we're doing small tip, big, longer tip. Talk to me about that real quick.
Yeah, that might have been a timing thing. There was a great book that I had read called The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, and it's this wonderful book. And the basic concept was creating words for emotions that we all experience but don't have words for. And, how the act of defining them and writing them down what they are kind of makes you able to feel them and understand them better. And I was reading this book, and it's just constructed in this beautiful way where there are sections. It's going to all sound familiar. And he would have a long one where he'd give a word and then give a long detailed definition of it that, encompasses the feelings of it and all of this. And then he would have a few short ones that are just like quick, like you see in a dictionary style definitions of various words. And I really liked that style. And as I was putting together this book, I thought, okay, I don't want this book to just be a list. Mm-hmm. Like I can collect tips from people and put in my own, and I can just make a list of tips, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's no beauty in that. There's no fun in that. And so what I really wanted to do with this is take some favorites of mine and say, okay, these are the ones that I can really dive deep on and elaborate on and get detail on, but then also have some filler in there that is like, let's go through some stuff fast here. The idea being, hopefully you can pick a section you like, open it up, find something on any page that's useful for you, do some refreshing of your memory of some quick tips. And then if you want to read something longer, there's something longer and deeper to read as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that you spent a lot of time on some of these specific tips, because you sent over a thing to me that was like, here are some of my favorites, and a significant portion of your favorites are short ones. Yeah. And some of the short ones, it's not that they're short because you didn't like them or didn't want to spend time on them. It's some of them are short because they're just freaking punchy. They need to be short, but the structure strikes me because it takes it away from being, you remember those like bathroom readers, the chicken soup for the soul, or just, the tips in life or whatever. It takes it away from being that and puts it into something that kind of, it breaks up and gives you a moment, in my opinion, gives you a moment to kind of reflect on it. There's a cadence to writing. And this is a big structural cadence, and it gives you a moment to reflect on things. But at the same time, as you and I have talked about, you can just jump in here. You can jump into the middle and just start reading some of these and going. But before I keep, getting effusive on the structure of this, the next thing after steal from your favorite writers, I'm going to stay in the writers thing because, you wrote a book here. We're talking about a book. We'll stay in the writing area. You go into some of Vonnegut's rules for writing that are, I was saying, slightly adjusted for writing for attorneys. And I say this because, attorneys, yes, we're in the customer service business, but a lot of us, some of the best writers I know are attorneys. And so I think that a lot of attorneys really do appreciate good writing, whether it's in fiction, nonfiction, or legal briefs. So yeah, talk to me about, I guess, what is it, the 8 rules that Vonnegut has?
Yeah, Vonnegut has
now
8 rules of writing. And I remember reading those again, and I think law school or just after law school, and immediately noticing to myself, these kind of apply to a lot of legal writing. You have to change a couple words, but the basic concept is there. And I printed them out, and I actually had them next to my desk because in my first couple of years of legal work, I was doing a lot of writing. Because every motion, I was the associate, every motion came over my desk.
Right.
But I was trying to remember these because I thought they fit so well. So use the time of the judge in such a way that he or she will not feel the time is wasted. In every brief, give the judge at least one character he or she can root for. Every person mentioned in your brief, party, witness, or bystander should want something, even if it is just a glass of water, right? Like, why are you including these details? Why are you putting these facts? This one I really love, and I train my associates pretty heavily on now. Every sentence must do one of 2 things: reveal key facts or advance an argument. And if you have a sentence in your brief that doesn't do that, it is a wasted sentence.
Yeah.
And also this one I rarely recognized when I was clerking, was start as close to the end as possible. If one sentence into your brief, the judge doesn't know what you want and why, that's bad. If 2 sentences in, the judge still doesn't know what you want and why, you've lost.
That one I absolutely love because, it's we begin when the earth was molten. Like, well, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, well then in 1066, no, like get as close to don't include the bullshit. But I've never really phrased it that way, and I really like that one.
Yeah, that really really resonated with me because I clerked for a Superior Court judge in law school, and the number of briefs I get from experienced attorneys who now I know and know are good, but they would I would start reading, and it would begin with the plaintiff by and through his attorney, X name, hereby files this motion in support of X with briefing attached. And I'm like, I am reading, and if I could, it would happen as like a clerk. I would read the entire first paragraph and think, I don't know what this motion is about.
Yep.
And I don't know why it's been filed. And now I'm a clerk and I'm mad at you.
I think that's a really good point to kind of hang on for a second, is like, we're dealing with people, and our writing is supposed to be persuasive, and sometimes persuasive isn't just about the actual argument. It's about being persuasive. It's about making people feel like they're on your side. The give the judge a character to kind of like root for or something in there. I remember my father always saying, like, make your client wear the white hat. Like you just have to, he would say in trials, make the jury like your client. And then give them enough to hang their hat on, to go home and say, yeah, we ruled in favor of this person right here, who I happen to like, but, just give them enough law to hang it on. So I really liked these specific ones in the writing that are very, very practical. Okay, we don't have all the time in the world, so I want to kind of move into some of the futurist stuff, some of the innovation things. Grab me, if you don't mind, one of your, you've got a chapter on innovation, one of your innovation rules here.
We'll start here in the innovation section. Number 199, practice creativity. Take some time each day to get into a creative space and try to just have fun. If you can't leave your space, you can't make a creative space wherever you go, just put on your creative socks. Don't have them, grab a Sharpie and write creative on the side of your most boring pair of socks, then put those on. That's a tip stolen from Scott Birkin, who has a great book, I think I mentioned in this book, called The Dance of the Possible, about practicing creativity. And it's something I think lawyers don't do enough, and we have to innovate. Our systems aren't working for people. We need to do better. And so, you have to jump into, we have to innovate. We have to practice being creative because it is not natural. It is something you have to work on. And so just take a little time every day and think, what can I do differently?
Yeah. I like that a lot. And I think that's a really good kind of like crux of innovation, because we can get into technology, we can get into, adjusting things, but it's being creative. Now, I think attorneys don't necessarily think of themselves as the creative type a lot of times, but I would say see writing. See how much we write, see how much we have to be creative about arguments and things like that. And so I would certainly argue that for the most part, lawyers are pretty creative. We just don't necessarily think of ourselves that way.
I was going to say, you hit right into tip 200 there, which is look at your business like you do the law, because so many lawyers, when it comes to the law, are so incredibly creative. I had a lawyer who I worked a case, and I won't give details in case he ever listens to this, but he had a phenomenally creative legal argument on this case that I was just like, you know what, I disagreed with him. I ended up winning, but like I saw the angle he was going with, and he put a lot of work into that, and he was being incredibly creative. He is a guy who used to print out emails within the last 5 years. He was not practicing that creativity in his business at all. And that to me is like, so, lawyers do recognize that value of being creative, thinking creatively like that. They just don't always apply it back to their business. They only apply it to the work they do for others, not the work they do for themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's stay in this creative area. Let's stay in this innovation area. I run across a lot of stuff that you do, Jordan, in on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and in various places that are related to kind of different methods of licensing, different alternative business models. The idea that we're going to have corporations owning, being able to split fees and things like that. And so I wanted to look a little bit forward. So a lot of the advice in this book is for the now, and which is great. It's great advice for the now. But let's think in 2030, let's say 5 years from now, we live in a world where fees are able to be split, non-lawyers are able to own law firms, or corporations are able to own law firms. What advice do you give attorneys to get themselves ready for that, to prepare for that?
Yeah, I hear a lot of lawyers when they're pushing back on me about these proposals we've been doing in Washington and around the country, saying, they're worried about competition, or that, they're worried about private equity coming in and buying up all the firms, to which, those are concerns I sometimes share, but I also sometimes have to ask them, why would they be interested in your firm?
Right.
And if I'm building a firm for the future right now, I think what you have to think about is, how do you make yourself a company that someone would actually be interested in partnering with, right? Not just buying your cases, because a lot of law firms, they think they have value. They think there's worth a lot. But when you get behind the scales, that law firm is worth nothing more than the current billables you have and the clients you have, right?
Yeah.
That's all you have in your firm. And so if you're trying to think for the future, how do you develop a firm that isn't someone they just buy your book of clients? They want to partner with you to build the legal profession and make it better.
Right.
That's the kind of firm you have to be. And what you have to be thinking about now is, how do you become that sort of firm?
Yeah, I like that. Because it's, that dovetails nicely with, quite frankly, how do you become a firm that you can sell? How do you become a firm that has inherent value, beyond, like you're saying, beyond just literally what's owed? What's owed in the business? What are the cases that I have that are ongoing right now? How do you get yourself to a place where the marketing exists and is a system, where your processes are running smoothly, and so somebody wants to buy your processes? How do you get to a place where you set yourself apart? I like that.
Yeah, Palace Law has done this for a few years now, of building a business model of buying up other firms.
Yeah.
And part of that is we have the marketing in place, we have the processes in place where we can buy cases and say, we're going to be able to turn these faster than you would have because we have these processes. And the idea there, the comparison is if someone came to us, they want our processes to put other people's cases into our processes, right? Because we've spent the time developing our firm as a business like that and thinking about the future. And there's a tip in the book, 196, is become either fashion or entertainment. And it comes from a Harvard business professor who said that really the best businesses over time develop into either, focusing on a small set of products that are either a fashion or entertainment. So fashion brands create products that are trendy and desirable. Entertainment provides memorable experiences. And legal, oftentimes people think is so separate from that.
Yeah.
But that's because so many law firms are separate from that right now. They just provide the same service to their clients on an hourly basis. They're not building anything lasting. They're not building fashion. But there are some exceptions, right? There are the big white shoe firms that are hired because they are the fashionable firms and no one's going to hire anyone other than them. Entertainment-wise, people provide really good services, but there are very rare exceptions that people say like, oh, this was fun to go through this process. I enjoyed my experience with you. I'm sending everyone here because even if it wasn't good, it was memorable.
I've never thought about that before. The idea, because that's beyond just processes. I'm creating an experience or I'm creating a feeling. My company, my business, my law firm is making people feel a certain way. And that's something that's not, that's something that does stick around. If you buy the company, by the name, by the idea of it, that does stick around.
And that's something that, lawyers don't think about. But, what you're buying is there's the apocryphal story of the Black & Decker drill. What do they sell? They don't sell drills. They sell holes in the wall. And you can go one deeper than that and they say, no, what they actually sell is a picture hanging on the wall. And I tell lawyers this sometimes, no one cares about lawyers. No one ever wants a lawyer. No one gives a shit about a lawyer at all. They don't even want courts. They don't even want that. They want the feeling of justice. Yeah. And there was a judge it was Victoria Pratt, who referred to justice not as a result, but she referred to it as a feeling of being treated with dignity and respect by the process. That's what it's about. That's what we're selling, is a feeling. But we don't always see that. We see it as focused on results or these. But we're selling at our best. We're selling a feeling to people. And the best lawyers know how to do that.
Yeah. Well, and that encompasses the idea. I was just talking to a lot of people on my team about, what does the law look like in the next 5 years? And in my mind, there's a lot of potential for kind of parallel justice. There's a lot of potential for alternative dispute resolution. There's a lot of potential for apps to come out to help people. Because again, you're right. Justice is just a feeling. It's just it's vindication or fairness or something like that. And it's not necessarily about literally going to court or literally having some guy with a wig on. I know we don't do that in the United States, but just like dole out quote unquote justice. It's the feeling. And so how do we put ourselves in a position where we can help people find that feeling, and access that feeling?
And recognizing that is that is the job, right? We need to be either fashion or entertainment for these people. Because I've seen lawyers get great results for clients who are incredibly unhappy with them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't like the process. I've had people call me upset wanting to fire their attorney. And it's like, actually, everything they've done is really good, but the feeling is bad. They're not getting that sense. They're not getting that entertainment that they want from these. And, if we're thinking about in the future, how do you build your company to be not just providing this same rote legal service, but how do you build your company to be the fashion law firm or the entertainment law firm to provide those sense of those services to your clients?
Yeah, because I think of the potential for having platforms. Your company is a platform. It is it's not necessarily just doing the divorce, but it's the divorce and the splitting of the assets and the maybe even some therapy or counseling sessions for the people involved in the divorce or something like that. And that is not me writing briefs. That's not even me arguing in front of a judge. Like nobody gives a shit about like what that is. That's the feeling. That's the I had. Yeah, it's the fashion of it, of going to that website, even.
And in the injury world, right, the number of cases I see that could have never come to an attorney at all if the insurance company had just paid for all the medical treatment right away.
Yeah.
The famous McDonald's case, she wanted medical treatment and they refused, and look what happened to them, right? Like this happens so often. And it's that the insurance companies could provide that feeling and take it out of the legal system entirely. There's so much era to disrupt there. If you're an attorney who's forward thinking and asking yourselves, stop thinking about yourself as the attorney providing this legal service in this context and ask yourself, how can I provide what my clients actually want? And better yet, what the 70% of people who aren't getting served actually want.
Well, Jordan, I think we've solved the future of law now.
It's done.
So yeah, so we can probably shut the podcast down at this point.
Transcribe it, add it as an addendum to the book, and then we're done.
Then we're done. We're done. We've solved law. So thank you. Thanks for helping me. Thanks for helping me solve law. But really, thank you. I really enjoyed reading this book. I got a lot of good information out of it. It's one of those times where you're reading along and you think, well, of course, but you wouldn't have gotten to it necessarily on your own. But like that's the kind of advice, and I love that kind of advice where you're like, this seems like it should have been intuitive, but it wasn't necessarily for me. And so I really enjoyed this book.
Well, I'm so glad. Thank you so much.
Before we go, we'll obviously drop links in the show notes, but tell people where they can find it, where they can connect with you, or where they can find the book.
Yeah, 411 tips for solo and small firm lawyers. You can find it on Amazon. If you go to my website, jordanlcouch.com, you can find it there. You can find me on all social media, just at Jordan L. Couch everywhere. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff, especially when we get into conversations about innovation and pushing the world forward and serving that access to justice, gap that's just waiting there for us to make money off it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.